Hey friends, as you all know, we've lost another legend in the world of professional wrestling, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. It has been announced that he died earlier today as you're watching this on Monday, August 13th. The Anvil is one of those guys, I think back to the first few years that I started watching professional wrestling. And of course, he and Bret the Hitman Hart had just started, or maybe even weren't even officially a tag team yet. I do remember seeing Jim Neidhart in the After magazines, and I think he was probably in Mid Atlantic maybe, and hadn't quite made it to the WWE just yet. But it wasn't long after that that he and Bret Hart started teaming up as the Hart Foundation. And what I liked about the Hart Foundation is for a tag team of that era, if you go back and think back and remember, tag teams like the Rougeau Brothers, the Rock and Roll Express, the Killer Bees, the British Bulldogs, even to an extent, Demolition and the Road Warriors, the Midnight Express, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, the tag team partners, they all kind of mirrored each other. And with the Hart Foundation, it was different because Bret was the more, the smaller guy, the wrestler, the worker, if you will, and Neidhart was the big anvil, for lack of a better word. He was that rhino. And um, there weren't many tag teams like that, and they used that to their advantage, I feel like. And they were, the heart attack is their finishing maneuver, where the Anvil would use his strength to hold up the opponent, and Bret would clothesline him. It was just that perfect combination, and of course, throwing Jimmy Hart in there. The pink worked for those two guys. I remember early on when they wore the black and blue tights. But when they transitioned into the pink, even the berets and the jackets with the big shoulder pads and everything, it was hokey, but it was hokey in a good kind of way. And I think that the two pulled it off very, very well. Jim Neidhart, of course, with the goatee, and he would stroke that goatee and laugh. That laughter was always something that I would remember too, that powerful force in the ring. And then, even when he transitioned into the new foundation with Owen Hart, and they kind of dressed like taxi cabs. Um, Jim Neidhart is one of those unsung heroes, I think, of tag team wrestling. I always appreciated his presence there, probably not as much as I should, but he was one of those guys. And then coming back in '94 as the surprise at SummerSlam, I believe he was, well, maybe it wasn't a surprise, but he was a part of SummerSlam. I think Davey Boy Smith was the surprise, helping out Bret Hart. But when he came back with Owen, and they feuded with Bret and Davey Boy for a bit, and then, of course, the reunification of the Hart Foundation and bringing Brian Pillman into that fold. And now it's sad to think that 4 out of those 5 guys are now no longer with us. But Jim the Anvil Neidhart, definitely a legend in the world of professional wrestling, someone who certainly, and I know people talk about this all the time, but he is one of those guys who certainly belongs in the WWE Hall of Fame. So take some time today, remember the Anvil, remember his family and his friends. They are certainly all in our thoughts and prayers.